Hello, my name is Herman Perez, and I'm a teacher at Achieve Early College High School with McAllen ISD. Today I'm going to be discussing, in accordance with the state of Texas Community Safety Education Act, the topic of proper interaction with law enforcement during traffic stops. So this presentation is going to be surrounding that specific topic. The outline of the presentation is primarily video based, but during the course of the video, we will pause and have short discussion in between the video pausing segments. The video is produced and distributed by Texas Gateway for Online Resources by TEA. This topic in particular, prior to becoming a teacher, I retired from law enforcement as a Texas police officer with over 21 years of service. So let's get right into it. So when we think about traffic stops, what do we think? Well, we think, oh, I'm going to get issued a citation, or oh, I'm going to get a ticket, or oh, I was speeding and I got caught, right? So those are some of the things that first probably come to mind. But there's so much more to a traffic stop and so much more behind what a traffic stop is and the purpose of it than what it may seem to at first glance. Some things that we can talk about prior to even considering what a traffic stop is one of the things that you should expect from a police officer is to be treated with dignity and respect, first and foremost. Secondly, another thing to consider is that, contrary to what may be believed, is that there is no state law that requires police officers to provide you with their name and badge number. That state law does not exist. In its place, many agencies enact policies within their departments that require that when a police officer makes contact with somebody, that they identify themselves and provide their badge number to the person they're making contact with. In this case, a motorist or a violator, right? A traffic violator. But there is no state law that mandates that. Okay. Some of the things that the police officer will tell you in the event that you are issued a citation is they're going to explain to you the process of signing your citation, what that means, what your obligations are to the court, how much time you have, and where you need to present yourself in order to comply with your promise to appear. And another thing is when seeking to perform a consensual search, if the police officer asks to search your vehicle, the officer should elicit very clear consent to search that vehicle. When all possible, a signed statement or a video recorded consent from the motorist to conduct that search should be on file, right? So let's start off with a short part of this video, and then we'll be right back to the discussion.
Hello, I'm State Senator Royce West. Welcome to the Citizens Law Enforcement Interaction Training Program, a byproduct of the Community Safety Education Act passed during the 85th legislative session. The goal of the act was to define the behavior expectations of citizens and law enforcement during traffic interactions. We know that in some communities there's an issue concerning trust between law enforcement and the community. This particular legislation is designed to ensure that we address that particular issue. We're addressing that issue through training in the academies, our law enforcement academies, our schools, and our driver's education programs. More specifically, schools are having to design a course to define what the behavior expectations are of citizens, specifically students when they're in school. Secondly, we're making certain that every person who takes a driver's license test receives content that's designed to define the expectations of that citizen when driving a vehicle and stopped by law enforcement. In your particular instance in the academy, we're making certain that you understand what your responsibilities are and our expectations of you when engaged in stopping a citizen on a traffic stop. This content is designed specifically to make certain that the trust factor between law enforcement and citizens is stronger than ever. And of course, Texas is leading the way. I want to thank you for being a part of law enforcement, for choosing law enforcement as a career, more specifically, making certain that you internalize this particular content and use it in your everyday practice. Thank you very much.
Okay, please go faster because I am running late. I will not.
I'm going as fast as I can.
Please, just go through the light. Just don't let that light turn red.
Okay, fine. I think we're getting pulled over.
What? Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh no!
Obviously, if I go over the speed limit, we're gonna get pulled over.
So in this portion of the video, we see the moment that leads up to what will become the actual contact between police officer and motorist or violator, however you choose to title the driver. So in your all's mind or opinion, what are some of the things that you think you should not do from this moment forward? And I'll give you some ideas, right? So some of the things that we should try to avoid doing during these interactions is try to avoid fumbling for things, try to avoid opening your glove box, try to avoid reaching to your back seat, try to avoid reaching underneath your seat, right? All those are things that are probably going to make the police officer feel uneasy, because we have to remember that this moment right here is extremely critical for the officer because he has no idea who's in that vehicle or what their intentions are, right? Now, while the stop may have been conducted solely and specifically for a traffic violation, the person that's behind the wheel may be a violent offender, maybe somebody who's just committed a crime, maybe somebody who's on the run, right, trying to hide from police, right? So we don't know what is about to happen in the next few moments when we interact with the violator and with the motorist, right? And a very large portion of it is very non-incidental. Nothing happens. There is no threat there. But because of that small portion that exists and that small possibility that exists, this is a very crucial moment for police officers because we're on edge at that moment because we don't know, right? So we have to consider that. And trying to interact with a police officer during these moments, I mean, the best thing we can do is just remain calm. Try not to let our nerves get the best of us, right? Try to pull over. Try to keep your hands where the officer can see them, right? You want to be able to give off as much body language as possible that you are of no threat, right? You may not be happy that you're being stopped for the traffic violation, or that you were caught speeding or running a red light or whatever the violation may be, but you're certainly not a threat, right? And the officer needs to be able to understand that. And in these moments, in this critical point, a lot of it is just the sheer body language and the movements that are happening within the vehicle that are going to tell the officer one way or the other, right? So law enforcement and drivers should respond with courtesy during traffic stops with each other, right? We should just be courteous to one another. Whether I'm the police officer, you're the violator, you're the police officer, I'm the violator, we're both people. And we should just be courteous and respectful to each other, right? Here's a little tidbit of information. While it is lawful for you to remain silent during a traffic stop, you are required by law to truthfully identify yourself when asked to do so by an officer. If a driver or a passenger identifies themselves falsely, they can be arrested for false identifying information to the officer. Although you do have the right to remain silent, it may be beneficial to verbally provide information identifying you, such as your address or additional information, if you cannot present your driver's license. So later on in the video, we'll see a question posed where, what if I don't have my driver's license with me? Well, there's certain information you can provide the officer, and then through a reference check on your name, date of birth, your address, we can obtain your driver's license information, verifying that you do indeed have a driver's license. But of course, you would have to provide the officer that information, right? If an officer suspects that a weapon is on you, the officer may conduct a pat down, right? So again, this all leads to the moment of interaction with you and the police officer. If there is no threat posed, you need to act like there's no threat posed. I guess that's probably the best way to say it, is very non-threatening. I mean, you may not like the fact, again, that you're going to get a citation or the potential exists for you to receive a citation, but you really don't want to be coming off as a threat to the police officer, because the police officer is not seeking any type of environment that's going to put him or her in harm's way either, right? So we have to consider that. If you are placed under arrest, it is an offense to refuse to identify yourself or to not provide your address, or to refuse to provide your date of birth to the police officer. So you have to provide that information. So remember that when we get stopped in these moments, things not to do are a lot of fumbling around, a lot of reaching under the seat, behind the seat, reaching in the glove box. And the best thing you can do is just remain calm, maybe even roll down your window so the officer has a clear view into the vehicle, because if he can see it, there's nothing threatening, it's going to put him or her, he or she can see there's nothing threatening, it's going to put him or her at ease in many sense of the way, right? You can see the threat or the non-existence of a threat when the windows are down, and just remain calm and just wait for the instructions given by the police officer. We'll continue with the video and we'll be back in just a second.
Pastor, put your hands on the dash. Pastor,
Ma'am,
Pastor,
put your hands on
put
the
your hands on the
dashboard, please.
dashboard.
Thank you.
Driver, put your hands on the steering wheel. My name is Deputy Larry Hatch, Travis County Precinct 1. The reason why I stopped you is speeding 45 and 35. You have a driver's license and proof of insurance, ma'am? Thank you. Sit tight for a second. I'll be right back with you. You'll be asked to sign a citation.
This isn't saying that you agree. It's just saying that you're going to follow up with the court.
Now, you'll be issued a citation for speeding 45 and 35. It's not a mission of guilt, but a promise to occur to court. You saw it right here at the last line, the bottom line right there.
You will get a copy with all the information you need.
You'll receive a notice in the mail. You got 30 days to appeal. Thank you.
So as we watch that traffic stop take place, obviously it's sped up for the sake of the video. But as we watch that traffic stop take place, some of the things that were discussed during the prior pause is not fumbling around, not doing a lot of things that exact stop showed. Those are things that put the officer on edge, obviously, because again, going back to, we don't know who is in that vehicle and if they have the intentions of harming the police officer, right? We have no idea at that moment. So I ask, how do you feel when you're stopped? For those of you that have been stopped, think about that for a little bit. I've been stopped prior to being a police officer. I did get stopped a few times when I was really young, and I violated some basic traffic laws. I remember rolling a stop sign. I've sped when I was younger. And I remember that when those moments came that I was stopped, I was extremely nervous. I was scared. I didn't want to get in trouble. A lot of things go through your mind, right? You're trying to do exactly what the officer tells you. You're nervous, right? But how about stopping and thinking about how the officer feels? And what do we think the officer feels? Well, from a police officer's perspective, while I didn't work traffic for a long time or a large duration during my career, I do recall stopping people, and I do recall those moments of nervousness and anxiety and fear as I approach the vehicle, because I don't know what I'm encountering in those crucial moments when that interaction takes place, right? So while the driver is feeling a sensation of nervousness, I can almost assure you that the police officer is feeling the same. We did discuss what you should not do when you're pulled over, and what you should do when you're pulled over. And one of the things that we'll discuss too is how the passenger should behave. So The passenger in the vehicle, the police officer's number one objective and interaction is going to take place with the driver, because the driver is the one that committed the act that created the stop to begin with, right? So unless there's probable cause or reasonable suspicion for the police officer to interact with the passengers, the majority of the interaction will take place, or all the interaction will take place solely with the driver, right? So it's a really good idea as a passenger to not try to intervene or involve yourself in the stop, because you're not really a part of that stop. Yes, you're a passenger in the vehicle, but the detention that's taking place, and I say that because when you pull over a car, it's a form of detention because the person really isn't free to go, right? So it's a form of detention. When that person is detained through a traffic stop, it's really intended for the driver, not so much for the passengers. So some of the things you should do in the event that you are stopped is you should slow down immediately and pull over to the right side of the road as soon as possible. Sometimes people get really nervous and they stop right in the middle of the road. There's nothing more dangerous than having to get off in the middle of the road because a car stops in the middle of the road and you're having to tell them, please pull off onto the side of the road. So we have to think of your safety and of the safety of the police officer at the same time, right? So the ideal spot to pull over would be off all the way to the side of the road onto the shoulder. Or if you can find a parking lot, that's also an extremely ideal place to stop, is to pull into a parking lot. When visibility is limited, activate your hazard lights and your interior dome light. So if you get stopped at night, it's a really good idea to roll down your back window so the police officer can see in, and click on the dome light inside your vehicle, providing sufficient illumination. So again, we're trying to make sure that there's no reason for an interaction that is less than favorable for either parties, right? We want to have a positive interaction. Even though the stop may have a negative connotation, we still want to have a positive interaction between the police officer and the violator, right? Another thing to note is the police officer may very well approach the vehicle from either side, right? So if the driver pulls over too far to the left and there's not enough space for the police officer to walk up, he or she may very well approach the vehicle from the passenger side and interact with the driver through the passenger side, right? Those decisions are made largely and they depend largely on the safety factors that are involved. And we're trying to find the safest spot to be able to conduct that business with the violator. Some simple things: when your vehicle is stopped, you put it in park and you turn it off, right? Keep both of your hands visible, preferably on the steering wheel. That would be the best place to put them. You leave them on the steering wheel. You are required by law, state law, you are required to lower your window. Before attempting to access your driver's license or your insurance, just let the officer know, hey, I'm going to grab my insurance. It's in my glove box. You're not asking for permission. You're just giving the courtesy of letting them know. Again, going back to, don't fumble around, don't reach for things, because again, we're trying to make sure that the interaction is as positive as possible, and there is no indication or false indications that there's something bad going on. So just, hey, sir or ma'am, I'm going to reach in my glove box real quick. That's where my insurance is, so I can give it to you. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Right? It's not they're giving you permission. It's just they're providing the avenue for us to know, or the police officer to know, what you're going to do, and that's okay for you to reach in there. Like, I know what you're doing in the glove box now. The instructions, right? The police officer instructions are really important. So there may be times where they ask you to get off of your vehicle. You mind stepping out of your vehicle for me, please? A very large percentage of the reason why they ask you to step off of your vehicle is because the traffic is just not favorable for you to be sitting in your car. And a lot of people don't know that, or they misconstrue that for, why do I have to get off my car? I'm not a criminal. It's not any way in shape or form meant to be that way. It's just at that moment, it's very dangerous for the police officer to be standing on the side of the road, or your vehicle isn't parked correctly. It's in an odd spot and he's trying to get you off the car so that you can be in a safe spot where you can have whatever interaction you're going to have with the police officer in a safer location, other than you staying inside your vehicle. On that same note, don't get off your vehicle unless the police officer asks. Again, that's equivalent to you reaching under your seat or reaching into your glove box without letting anybody know. we don't know what your intentions are. And that leads to potentially a less positive interaction with you and the police officer, which is definitely something that we want to avoid. If you do have a firearm and you are required by state law to notify them, you or if you are qualified through state law to have a driver's license or a concealed handgun license or an LTC, a license to carry, right? You should store all the required documents where you can access them and provide them to the police officer if you are asked. You should not reach for things without letting anybody know. And don't attempt to leave the traffic stop until it has been indicated by the officer that the stop is complete. Those things are really important. So you can't just drive off, because you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to get probably arrested and charged for additional things that would not have occurred should you have not left that scene. So we're going to continue with a little bit of the video, and we'll be back to discussion here in just a second.
Hello, I'm Dr. Penn. The video you just watched is intended to show you what not to do when you're stopped by a police officer. But what is the right thing to do? How should you, as a citizen, handle the situation? We've asked a cross-section of high school students and ordinary citizens to help us out by asking some of the typical questions that you might have about the right way to handle yourself if and when you get pulled over. Let's get right to it.
What does the officer expect to see when he approaches our car?
Officers don't always have a clear view into your vehicle. Keep your hands visible. Don't move around. Don't reach for anything. For example, you can place your hand on the steering wheel in the 10 and the 2 position. That makes sense? Take a deep breath. Breathe, relax, wait for the officer to approach, and he'll give you further instructions. If it's dark, turn the overhead light on.
Why does the officer tell us to roll down our windows? What's that all about?
On a traffic stop, the officer may ask you to roll down your windows for his or her own safety. Under certain circumstances, when there's not a great deal of illumination, or when the windows have a tint, the officer may require you to roll down the windows to identify anybody who may be in the backseat.
What happens if I don't want to show you my driver's license or tell you who I am?
If you refuse to show your driver's license to an officer when he stops you on a traffic stop, the officer can arrest you for refusing to show your driver's license. And under certain circumstances, if probable cause exists, the officer may also require the passengers to identify themselves.
What happens if I don't have my driver's license with me? Will I be arrested? What if I just forgot it at home?
An officer can usually verify that you have a license once he obtains basic information from you. Depending on local law, you may be arrested, but most likely you will only get a citation.
Do I have to get out of my car? I'm not a criminal.
Most of the time, an officer will actually get out of the vehicle for safety. You will be amazed how many times an officer and or his vehicle are struck by another driver while conducting a traffic stop. If the officer asks you to get out of the vehicle, it's for your safety and also for his. Put it this way, nobody wants to be standing 6 inches from the highway with their back to traffic.
What if I'm a passenger in a stopped car? Can I ask questions?
Many times passengers want to get involved with what's going on. Generally, we're only going to speak with the driver unless a passenger has done something wrong. The officer should only conduct business with the driver. It's up to the driver to pass on the information to the passenger.
Is forgetting to use my signal or going a few miles over the speed limit really a big deal?
Traffic law is all about everyone's safety. Most of the time, officers look for traffic violations in areas where there have been accidents, citizen complaints about traffic, or areas known to be dangerous like construction zones, narrow streets, hills, blind curves, that sort of thing. When an officer makes a traffic stop, it is about getting people to drive safer. So sometimes, yes, not using that signal can be a big issue. Think about the last time someone didn't signal and cut you off.
Why should I sign a ticket? I don't want to look like I agree with it.
Look at the ticket as a personal recognizance bond. You're signing it to say you will contact the court so you can be released to go on your way. If you don't sign the ticket, then you can be arrested and taken to see the magistrate at the jail.
Okay, so I signed the ticket. What happens next?
The law says you have to be given at least 10 days to contact the court to state what you plan on doing. At this point, you have options you can discuss with the court. You can ask to go to trial and have a judge decide your case. Some courts allow you to plead no contest and take defensive driving courses to then have the ticket dismissed. Or you can just pay the fine. If you don't have the money right away, almost every court will work with you to set up a payment plan. There are other options that you may have that vary court by court. The big thing is to ask and be sure to do it before the time set on your citation.
What if I think the officer acted inappropriately or was rude or didn't have a reason to stop me?
If you think the officer acted inappropriately, was rude, or didn't have a reason to stop you, remember, you can take it to court. A court will have the final say on whether or not you violated the law. If it's about the officer's behavior or treatment, please contact that officer's employing agency. They have investigators that will contact you, and they will thoroughly investigate the complaint. Don't forget that most officers in this state and even across the country now have either in-car cameras with audio or on body-worn cameras with audio, so that will be the beginning point of investigation. After the department investigates your concern and complaint, they will contact you, let you know what the results were, what their findings were, and let you know what action, if any, was taken.
Do I have to let an officer search me or my car?
You have the right to deny a consent search of your car, and even if you say yes, you can change your mind at any time. A consent search means that the officer is asking you for permission to search your car. However, if the officer has probable cause to search, they not need consent. As far as a person, an officer can frisk a car. For example, if you are asked to get out, the officer can look inside before you get back in to see if there is a weapon within reach of the driver.
So now you have a better idea of how to handle the situation. Let's wrap things up and take another look at our traffic stop and how it could have turned out better.
So a couple of things we'll touch on from that segment, and one of them is your signature. So if you are issued a citation, you will be asked to sign the citation. So it's really important that we understand that when you're signing that citation, you're not pleading guilty to anything. You're not agreeing that you did commit the offense that you're being charged with on that ticket. You're not agreeing with the police officer. Your signature indicates none of those things. What your signature does indicate on the citation is it is what is called a promise to appear. You are signing indicating that you recognize that you're being charged with that offense, and you are promising through your signature that you're going to appear in court to answer for the charge, or to fight the charge, or to request a trial by jury, or to plead no contest and pay the fee. Whichever choice you make in the courtroom, what that signature indicates is that you're promising you're going to go to court to make arrangements or to answer for that citation. Secondly was the consent. So when you provide an officer consent, if an officer were to ask you for consent to search your vehicle, you do have the right to say, no, you do not have consent to search my vehicle. And unless the officer has probable cause, the officer has to respect your decision and honor that and say, okay, well, I'm not going to search because you didn't provide me consent. Another thing that the officer said in the video is that if you're provided consent and then they're searching your car and then halfway through you decide, okay, I don't want you to be searching anymore, you can say, okay, I want you to stop searching. And the officer, again, has to abide by your request because the search is consensual. It would be different if the officer has probable cause. Once he has probable cause, then he can request things like a search warrant or enter your vehicle because he has sufficient probable cause without your consent. And the last thing that I'll touch on is when the officer is talking about things like a blinker or a turn signal not being used and how that's such a big deal. One of the things we have to consider is that traffic enforcement is not just to stop people and issue out citations. Traffic enforcement also creates a deterrence, right? So if we think of school zones, for instance, school zones, a lot of times you'll see police officers driving in the school zones, And what they're doing is they're just ensuring that the law is being abided by, right? Because there may be children in the area. And if you see an officer in the school zone every morning for a week, next week, he or she may not even be there. But you're going to remember and you're going to slow down because you remember last week there was an officer here, thus creating the deterrence, right? And ultimately, what the goal is there is safety, right? We're creating an environment where the traffic laws are being abided by and the general public and community are safe. So those are three of the things that I wanted to touch on and elaborate on. We're going to go back to this video shortly and watch another traffic
We had
stop.
pizza yesterday.
No hamburgers, because I don't eat red meat.
That's right. And a non-meat eater over here.
What about snappy salads?
Ooh, snappy salads. You're talking my language now.
I've been there a long time.
What you gonna get?
Salmon on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Make my own half snap.
Mm-hmm.
Salmon.
Mm-hmm. Hey, this man have brake lights on?
It looked like it.
I didn't see brake lights on that one. So, you're getting pulled over.
Don't panic. It happens.
Put on your signal and look for a safe place to pull off the road. Bravo 742 traffic. It's going to be a Texas tag. George King 43 Zebra Lincoln. Occupied. If you can get into a parking lot, great. Put your car in park.
Roll down your windows.
Turn off your engine.
Keep your hands on the steering wheel and wait for the officer.
You will be asked to show your driver's license and insurance.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, officer.
Officer Opros, Dallas Police Department. You're being stopped today because your brake lights are out. Is there any reason your brake lights are out this evening?
No, sir. I didn't realize it was out.
May I see your driver's license and proof?
Do what the officer asks. If you have to reach into your console, let him know you're about to do it. They're in my console. Let me grab it.
Okay, go ahead.
Here you go, officer.
Thank you, sir. I'll be right back with you, okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
The officer may ask you to get out the car. Just follow the instructions.
Stand where you're asked. It will be the safest place. Stay out of the car until you're told to get back in.
So where are you coming from tonight?
I'm coming from class. I had an exam today.
What kind of exam?
I had a history exam.
History exam.
Yes.
How did you do?
I think I did pretty well. We will not find out until tomorrow.
Oh, well, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I
Hope
appreciate
you
it.
did well also.
I hope I did too.
I wasn't very good in history.
No?
No.
What's your favorite subject?
Math.
Math? Not really that smart for math, but hopefully you get math a lot more than what I do. Wait for the officer to tell you it's okay to leave.
All right, sir. Here's your driver's license and insurance back.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're all set. Just a warning for the brake lights. You're free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Drive safe.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Have a good night.
You have a great night, man.
Thank you. Look for a safe spot to leave. Usually the officer will wait for you to leave first.
So as we see in this traffic stop, it's much different than the first one. The first traffic stop, there was a lot of moving, fumbling around. This traffic stop was very different. The motorist had his hands where they could see him, informed the officer he was going to reach into the console. There was respect both ways, dignity and courtesy going both ways, which is super important. So the ideal thing and the main thing to remember is not to panic. You're just getting pulled over, and a big one too is a safe place, right? So if we can find a parking lot or a large shoulder to pull onto, those are ideal. So we'll go back to the video and conclude it out.
On behalf of all the state and local partners that brought you this training video, thank you for watching. And safe travels across the great state of Texas.
We just want to keep everyone safe and get to our home at the end of the day.
So that concludes our video. One of the things that I'll close out by saying is that in the event that you feel that you've been mistreated or that the officer's behavior was rude or mistreating in any way, shape, form, you're urged to contact that law enforcement agency that the officer works for and to provide your complaint to them. You can do that online through multiple police agencies, your larger ones like Texas Department of Public Safety or DPS. And several other agencies have online complaint forms that you can use. In addition, if you do not access or you cannot access an online complaint form, you can simply call the office and ask to speak with someone who you can file a complaint with. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and goodbye.